Your body can't survive long without food, and death by starvation is a painful death. Typically, your organs will fail, often your heart, as your body eats itself, muscle wasting away, the protein lost before the most vital organs begin to shut down. Quite often, people go into cardiac arrest and suffer very painfully before they eventually pass away. I'd ask you to really imagine that, and then ask yourself, is that a fate that someone deserves for throwing paint on some military planes? I am, of course, talking about Kessa Zura, who has been on hunger strike now for 46 days. She is one of the original Filton 24 protesters. Kessa was arrested when she was 19, she's now 20, and has spent 17 months awaiting trial. She's been refused bail and held for 17 months without trial. 17 months. To give you an idea, 17 months ago, that's 4 months before Donald Trump was re-elected and 13 days before the 2024 UK general elections, before this government took power. Just think back to 13 days of this Labour government. We were in a very different place politically. Think back to before Donald Trump. We were in a very different place politically. Of course, before Donald Trump's second election, I should say. 17 months, it's almost enough to have like two full-term pregnancies, and for them to take place one after the other. 17 months being kept in a prison where she's been mocked, sexualized, had her hijabs confiscated, her flower displays torn down, and is periodically being kept in solitary confinement according to her family. What have we done? By allowing the government to define terrorism as anyone they don't like. It's actually terrifying how disproportionate that power is. To be held for 17 months without trial is horrific. In the last few days, however, Kessa's situation, as she's gone on hunger strike, has gotten much worse. As the Middle East Eye reports, friends report that Kessa Zura, who has entered day 46 of her food refusal, is in imminent danger and no longer able to stand. But HMP Bronzefield has refused their repeated request to call an ambulance. Her friends have repeatedly called the South East Coast Ambulance Service, but were told that if one were sent, the prison would turn it away. Ella Mulsdale, Zara's next of kin, told Middle East Eye that she has been on the phone to her since 5 p.m. yesterday, trying to help her breathe through the pain. She is in a life-threatening state at the moment, Mulsdale said. Zara's loved ones report that she is suffering from severe pain in her chest, lower back, around her kidneys. Now, particularly with that last line, remember what I said about your vital organs shutting down. There was a story I heard that a member of the IRA who was imprisoned by the British state made it to 46 days of hunger strike, and that was the day that they passed away. So I am very concerned about her well-being right now, especially as this is the second time an ambulance has been called in the past few days. After protesters, including MP Zara Sultana, had been protesting outside the prison since 2:30 a.m. this morning, an ambulance did eventually get called for Kessa. This was the moment that it arrived. I can only really hope that it arrived in time. As far as I'm aware, I haven't heard anything to the contrary, but I'm really hoping that that young woman is okay. Now, the response from the right wing has been predictable, both on Twitter and on their shitty little TV shows. Now, Julia Hartley-Brewer had David Bajent, a Your Party councillor, on to discuss the hunger strikes earlier today.
Genuinely, I care not a jot whether these people live or die.
I'm sorry for you.
I care not a jot.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel like
Why?
that. Because I think that's heartless.
But they're choosing. If they choose to starve themselves to death, I'm not quite sure why that's my problem. If they choose to starve themselves to death, that is their business and not mine.
Well, I think it is my business. I'm a politician, so therefore I do think it's my business. I think Zara Sultana thinks it's her business.
So the authorities should give in to emotional blackmail.
I don't think it's emotional
It's not,
blackmail.
isn't
It's
it?
drawing attention.
So their case should get priority over other cases of people waiting on remand a long time for their cases. Their case should go ahead because they're willing to go on a hunger strike.
No, I think they should be released on bail, probably.
They should be released
I don't know. Yeah,
maybe the British people don't want people who've been accused of violent crimes to be released on bail.
Maybe British people don't want people to be incarcerated for over a year without trial.
The British state is wasting resources to keep her in jail. She is not a public threat to anyone. She threw paint. That's an active choice that they're making. It's an active choice every bit as much as her refusing food is an active choice. I should say allegedly through paint. But yeah, that's an active choice being made by the British state just as much as her refusing food is an active choice. And it is very much your concern, Julia. If the state can lock you up without trial, it is your concern. Especially with how authoritarian this Labour government is. Like, they're not fans of yours, Julia. I wouldn't be risking this. If I were you, I would be like, nah, don't want the state to have that power. Like, surely, if Starmer had jailed someone she agreed with for a non-violent crime associated with acts of violence, can you imagine how Julia would react? Oh, wait, hang on a second. No, but sorry, we don't have to imagine. We just have to compare how she reacted to Lucy Connolly's imprisonment.
You shouldn't have been arrested, and you certainly shouldn't have gone to prison. I so wish that you had pleaded not guilty, even if you end up remanded, because with this change,
hindsight's a wonderful
we still
thing,
have
isn't it?
jury trials now, not for long, and the jury, I believe, would, if I'd set this up in the jury, we would have acquitted you.
If she wants to imprison herself by inciting violence on Twitter and helping to instigate a riot, Julia, I don't see how that's my problem. I don't see how that's my business. If Lucy Connolly wants to imprison herself, if she wants to get put in prison, but for inciting a riot, I don't see how that's my problem. That sounds like a you problem, Lucy. It sounds like a you problem, Julia. Kessa Zara has been in prison 5 times longer than Lucy Connolly. And Lucy Connolly got a fucking trial. Lucy Connolly is spoken about like she is some like victim of the big government I'm trying to think of the term, big government wokeism, if you like, is probably the term that they would use. But like there was some massive injustice around Lucy Connolly. Kessa Zara has been in prison without a trial for 5 times longer than Lucy Connolly. I feel like I have to say it again because it's so interesting how the standards are just applied so differently if you're a right-wing white freak who whines about refugees in hotels. Harriet, first of all, what do you make of the way Kessa has been treated? Do you think HMP Bronzefield are failing to protect her?
I think that if we look at the testimony from Kessa and the other 7 hunger striking Palestine Action prisoners, it looks like she's been treated incredibly poorly and really let down by both politicians and the prison system. But the first question I sort of want to ask here is, why is the British government allowing sites and subsidiaries of Israel's largest arms company to operate on British soil after a UN commission found that Israel had committed genocide in Gaza? Why is that being allowed to happen? It seems like the British government is more interested in protecting the assets of an Israeli arms company than it is the lives of the principled young people who allegedly took part in Palestine Action activities. Palestine Action, as I feel absolutely duty bound to always repeat as a journalist, is currently a prescribed organisation, and showing support for its activities is currently punishable by up to 14 years in prison. However, it was not a proscribed organisation when the Filton 24 action allegedly took place. And I think that it's also important to distinguish between the Filton 24 action, which Kessa Zora was part of, allegedly, and the Bryce Norton 5, who threw red paint on RAF planes at Bryce Norton, again, allegedly. And that incident was seen as like a trigger for the British government to bring forward their prescription of Palestine Action under the Terrorism Act. I think that Kessa and all 8 hunger strikers are in this position because the government has weaponised and misused counter-terror legislation, and that there is really a level of powerlessness when you only have your body left with which, to use to get anything that you feel you need. Like they can't be taking this action lightly. They are at risk of death. It's incredibly frightening that they might not live because of this. And yeah, what we know from the Council of Palestine Action prisoners, I've been in touch with T. Hodja and her younger sister Rama about her treatment. T was hospitalised a couple of weeks ago. She had another hunger strike, which she took part in earlier in the year because she believed she was being retrospectively punished by the prison system after the prescription of Palestine Action. She said that she was being treated much worse after the prescription. She said she was called a terrorist by prison staff. She had her mail withheld. She had her job at the prison library taken away from her under spurious reasons, and it was something that she really loved doing, and she felt like it gave her purpose in prison. I think it's also important to say that HMP Bronzefield have responded to allegations that they have really failed in their duty of care towards prisoners. They've said that they can't provide information about specific prisoners. They always say that, but they do say that all prisoners have full access to healthcare, including attendance to external medical facilities if needed. However, according to Prisoners for Palestine, the campaign group that is supporting the hunger strikers, they were trying to get an ambulance to come for Kessa Zura for 19 hours. And they kept being told by the ambulance service there was no point in sending one because it would just be turned away by the prison authorities. So we have Kessa Zura, who has not been convicted of any crime, over 45 days without food, with all the reported symptoms, which are incredibly serious, and an ambulance only finally took her away after about 19 hours of pressure, of protesting, of MPs like Zara Sultana standing outside of HMP Bronzefield. That very much looks to me like HMP Bronzefield, which is run by the private company Sodexo, let's not forget, for profit, not taking very much care at all over the life of a young person who is far braver than me and far more principled than most of us.
I was, yes, I mean, 100% agree, of course, Harriet. And I was thinking about how fundamental that right is, not to be convicted retrospectively for things that have become illegal since you committed the act. It was written into by the National Assembly of France in 1789. It was written into the Declaration of on the Rights of Man and Citizen. Like it is one of the fundamental rights I mean, one of the fundamental human rights, but primarily one of the fundamental legal rights. And it is wild to me that it is being applied, that the law seems to be being applied retroactively to these people, if not in de jure terms, in de facto terms, with the way that they're being treated, for example, by prison staff. But I do want to ask, why do you think Julia Hartley-Brewer, who we saw the clip of, is so indifferent to people being imprisoned without trial, but so outraged when people are imprisoned after being convicted for incitement? It's almost like there's no self-interest there. There's no sort of like, I could be in this situation one day. Sometimes I just think these people aren't very bright.
I think that Julia Hartley-Brewer has a deficiency when it comes to basic human empathy for others. I wonder if she would say that, oh, they're making a choice to somebody with anorexia. I wonder if she'd make that same statement. But I think, the reason for this is because Julia Hartley-Brewer is an Israeli mouthpiece. She does propaganda for the Israeli state. Just go and look for a video posted 2 months ago. It's available on the Stand With Us Instagram. It's about her visit to Israel, her recent trip, where she speaks about how Israel has so much to teach us in the West about right and wrong. I really think that people should watch it. It has like emotional music playing while she talks about the Israeli conscription of 18 and 19-year-olds and how great it is that they proudly put on their uniform to defend their country and commit war crimes, that we've all seen. You don't get much more ardent Zionist propaganda than Julie Hartley-Brewer. I mean, this is Hasbara. This is Israeli propaganda in action. It seems to just flow from her in this really, like, she really believes it, I think, and I don't know. I feel a bit sorry for her.